Hey there, welcome back to Tennille Talks. All right, y'all. So I used my handmade deck for this reading. This is the deck that has biblical characters, and two biblical characters came out. The first is Nicodemus, and the second is Silas. So I'm quickly going to tell you about them, and then I'm going to translate them to modern day people that I think this reading is revealing. So first we have Nicodemus. It says he was a well-known Pharisee and teacher, led to Christ during a midnight visit with the Savior, and who would later help prepare Christ's crucified body for burial. So modern day Nicodemus, or member of a Pharisees, in my mind, this is like saying, okay, Tennille, so there's a secret cult, there's a secret coven, some type of society, some kind of group, okay? And it's, you know, if you research the Sanhedrin Council, like everybody just couldn't be on that, right? And so I'm like, okay, this is a group that has power. They have finances, they have connections, they have access, they have resources, okay? But somehow one of their members, right? And the crazy thing is that you have religion versus spirituality. And so this would be like the modern day religion versus spirituality. These groups opposed Christ just like today the covens and the societies oppose the light ones, the royals and the chosen. Same thing playing out. But there is a member similar to Nicodemus. So now I want you to think about you, and I want you to think about a possible contract, somebody that you were connected to. There is somebody that you may have been connected to that you did not know was a part of one of these secret covens, groups, cults, or societies. This person would have had some type of rank if we just go off of the energy of Nicodemus. They could have been a teacher, they could have been a leader, but they were well known. So they had already established themselves. They've been a part of this group for quite a while. Okay, now what I understand about these groups or covens is that the knowledge they possess, it is not knowledge about something that dwells in them. They possess knowledge about what dwells in the vessels of a chosen, right? And so they can't possess your power, but they can possess the knowledge of your power, which also means that they can keep that knowledge hidden, hence why the groups are secret. They have things that are secret. They do things that are secret, but none of it is really about what they have. It is about those that are out there, right? And so a very small group has the ability to kind of control. Now, they can't take the light of the Most High out of you, but what they can do based on the earthly power that they have is to control your environment. Your environment consists of people, places, and things. And so you can be restricted or allowed in certain places. You can be contracted, or contracts can be broken between you and specific people. In terms of things, they can make resources and things available to you in abundance, or they have the ability to kind of cut off access so that resources are very hard to come by, right? Now, they cannot possess the God in you, but when they can control your environment, they can possess the ability for the God in you to come out of you, right? Now, everybody that has the God in them, you know that at some point your soul's purpose is going to require you to get it out because people need it. Everything that Jesus did and said and spoke, it was really to benefit those. That was him pouring out the God in him, the light. There is no different for the chosen and the royals of today. So there is a member that comes to you, and it almost seems like this member was supposed to get in some type of contract, but there really was not knowledge of who they were on the back end. Now, I have two biblical characters in this reading, but I also have an African proverb. If you had to describe this member, this proverb says, "An empty pot makes the loudest noise." An empty pot makes the loudest noise. And so I want you to think about somebody that was in your life. And, you know, a lot of time as a chosen, like, you already know people who really have nothing going on with inside of them. And so the loudest noise, that is coming out with the energy of the Knight of Cups. And so it is almost like they send specific people to you. Now, I want you to think about this. Nicodemus was intrigued and inspired by Christ's teachings. But the teaching that was challenging for Nicodemus to grasp was the teaching of rebirth, right? And so Nicodemus didn't understand how you could be old and be born again. And so Christ really talks about it being a spiritual rebirth, okay? And it's really about the inclusion of the spirit and water, okay? And this is what you use in order to get the rebirth. So you can live the same life, but you can have many rebirths. Now, think about that. An empty pot makes a loud noise. Somebody comes to you in the energy of the Knight of Cups. It is that somebody comes with water, okay? Somebody comes with water. But as a chosen or a royal or a light one, you know when you have an empty pot in front of you. You know when somebody has no emotion, when somebody has no wisdom, no intellect. Now, you're not going to tell them, right? But these somebodies that come towards you are coming with physical or earthly riches, but those don't really compute for a royal, because we are looking for your pot not to be empty. Like, we should be able to feel you. We should be able to resonate with your soul. We should be able to read something inside of you. And so this is like somebody who came with a lot of noise, but the reality is they had nothing going on inside of them. Okay? So this is like all talk, no muscle. That kind of energy. This is the person that is sent to you, and this person comes to you almost as a form of opportunity. Now, the opportunity that you afford everybody is power, right? They cannot take it out of you. But if they are in a contract with you, then your power has the ability to flow in the direction towards anybody that is linked to you. And so when these people from these groups are trying to contract or bind themselves to you, they have a knowledge about you that you don't yet know. And so they will play on your ignorance, they will play on your naivete, so that you know, and when I say play, I mean, they can only know about the chosen, but they can't get their body, they can't get their vessel to resonate or to move or to vibe like a chosen's. And so an empty pot makes the loudest noise. You're like, you can't fool me. Like, you know what I'm saying? But they don't know how far off from the mark they really are. Some of them think it's just enough to know us. It's just enough to know how we operate. It's just enough to know how we think. It's just enough to understand their powers, and now we understand them. And so all of this is almost like, these are like the backdoor plays that people in these groups put together in order to create contracts with royals and with chosen. Now, we have Nicodemus. So whether Nicodemus came to you, right? Or Nicodemus sent an empty pot that made a loud noise. But the problem is that the chosen here kept their eye on the vision, meaning you read this person, even if you didn't tell them verbally with your mouth, that you picked up something on them that was it was unsafe, right? Once we start to get closer to our purpose, once we start to resonate and move into alignment, even if we don't know why, we understand when people are unsafe. Okay, now you may have recognized that this person was unsafe. I do have the energy of the 10 of Cups, which typically is family, and family is coming out with marriage. This didn't have to be a literal marriage, but this is telling me that there was some type of family that was either a part of or going to benefit from a contract coming together. Okay, this family had knowledge of this contract. They were overseeing or they were watching this contract unfold. But if this person is literally being described as an empty pot, makes the loudest noise, I feel like he could have been quiet to everybody else. Like, everybody else could have thought that this person was the perfect picked. They had the perfect pitch, the perfect approach that would have made the chosen just, but again, it is the gifts of the chosen that are like able to hear things that are there and not there. Now, this operation or this plan, it was really about a change of power. It was getting the chosen to essentially give their power over. Now, you know what? This is what got me thinking about Game of Thrones. So I'm watching Game of Thrones for the second time. And when we're thinking about people with power in Game of Thrones, who do you have after the king and queen? Who do you have after the king and queen? Who then has the next or the most power? It would be the hand of the king. This is essentially somebody wanting to make sure that they can always control who the hand of the king is in the life of a chosen. You know how oftentimes we talk about handlers? You know, it's like once you wake up to certain levels of this experience and you're like, there are people that are sent to you that are never going to be equally yoked, but somehow they've been given the power to handle you, right? And when I'm talking about handling you, it's like, no, they can't possess your power, they can't take it, but they can make sure that the temperature or the climate of your environment that has kept you suppressed, that has kept you dormant, like they can handle the environment around you in order to make sure that it is not a supportive environment, to make sure that the connection that they have with you is not caring, like the handlers are supposed to come up in order to like make sure that you don't go through a rebirth, right? And so when we're thinking about people coming to you emotionally, I really feel if Jesus talks about rebirth really including water and spirit, this is almost like people wanting to corrupt your waters so that you don't go through a spiritual rebirth. If you go through a spiritual rebirth, all of a sudden you become a magnet for manifestation. All of a sudden you are tapped into the universe, and what you want wants you. It's like an endless conversation that your heart and mind are having with the universe, and you get into this flow of manifestation. And so there are handlers, there are contracts that chosen are supposed to be bound to in order to get them to not go through a spiritual rebirth. When you go through a spiritual rebirth, all of a sudden you are online. It is harder to control you. It is harder to convince you. It's harder to fool you. It's harder to manage the environment around you, because how do you manage the purpose of a chosen, right? You can manage their job, you can manage their career, you can manage their insurance, you can manage their access to healthcare, you can manage their resources, like, you know what I'm saying? But once somebody is in their soul's purpose, that is like a point that nobody can access except the Most High. And so this is about making sure that you never went through a change in your own power, and that your hand, the hand of the king or the hand of the queen that you are, is always somebody that is really playing on the other team, or sent or appointed by the other team because of a knowledge, okay? Now, so we have Silas, we had Nicodemus, right? This is this leader. Now, let me tell you about the energy of this leader. This leader is going through some type of conflict, and they're going through conflict because you finally reached, I saw that crawling. This leader is going through conflict because you finally reached the state of you are finally receiving divine guidance. And so anybody that comes, you are going to be able to read them almost immediately. And it's not that you have to like give a PSA that you understand what you're reading, but it's like something inside of you is literally just, so you used to be the document that everybody was reading, but now you're reading everybody else like documents, So, an empty pot makes the loudest noise. This really is about your supportive connections, your ability to care for yourself. And also, I have project-based adulting. A lot of times for survivors of childhood trauma, any type of trauma, the way that you manage your adult life, it is a lot easier if you break it up into projects, and you take small bites and small pieces, because it can be overwhelming for us for a lot of reasons, okay? And so this is about you not being able to digest your life properly. It's like your life was always supposed to feel or taste like a disgusting meal. It's like you were never supposed to enjoy it. You were never supposed to, it was never supposed to nourish you, It's, if your life was a meal, this is supposed to be like your worst meal ever. And one of the ways that they make sure that it is a terrible meal for you to consume is they control the connections that are around you. Now, these can be intimate, but they don't have to. They can be familial. They can be work colleagues. They can be peers. They can be classmates. It could be anything. Okay? Now, I have a card that says childhood trauma disrupts normal brain development, right? And so a lot of us have been a part of a systematic program, okay? And so the grooming and the breaking down of our connection to the divine, or what they thought was going to be our connection to the divine, like it starts very early. And so I'm seeing here that at some point you went into hermit mode. And I think that when you went into isolation, and it was almost like everybody assumed that they were successful in breaking you down from rebooting, from going to a rebirth, right? Your isolation period meant that they were successful. They send you a connection. The connection corrupts your waters. No longer are you able to go through this spiritual rebirth in order to get yourself back on your soul's journey. Okay? And so a lot of people that come are going to want you to emotionally ingest something that makes you sick, to corrupt your waters emotionally so that you cannot intuitively decode or receive messages about your purpose, about your guidance. Okay? So before I clarify, we start with Nicodemus, but we end the reading with Silas. Now, Silas was Paul's faithful companion during the second missionary journey. And so Paul is Saul of Tarsus. So imagine that there is, imagine yourself, right? Right now, you are all in your spiritual body, right? Like you're operating out of your divine mind. You could be in your north node already, but like the way you are operating now, I want you to think about the older you, the part of you maybe when you were rebelling against your own identity, right? Not that I'm putting that on you or in you, but what I'm saying is that the biblical character here, we're talking about Paul. Paul used to be Saul of Tarsus, who was a member of the Sanhedrin Council, aka the Pharisees. So we go from literally, and like although the reading doesn't connect Nicodemus and Silas, I'm almost getting that there was a member of a coven occult or society that was a leader, like this person had power. And I don't know if they themselves have gotten converted as a result of you not breaking and becoming whatever it is they need you to be, right? You recognize that this was a loud pot with a lot of noise. And so if they can't send somebody in to kind of possess and control you, it is almost like you go into hermit mode. And when you, okay, so this is why this is important. Got it. Okay. So the card that says childhood trauma disrupts normal brain development. All the trauma that you went through, it was supposed to corrupt your mind. Imagine what Jesus would have been like if he was a mental health case. Like, imagine some of the things that our mind deals with on earth today, right? We have depression, we have anxiety, we have bipolar disorder, we have personality disorders, we have schizophrenia. Like, we have all of these things that have like made living in our minds sometimes difficult. Okay, and there are a variety of reasons for that. Now, this reading says childhood trauma. So there are some childhood traumas or just childhood trauma. Like the point of it is to corrupt or distort our mind. Imagine if Jesus didn't have full access to his mind. And you know, like when we're talking about Jesus's stories, there's like Jesus on the mount, there's Jesus at the well, there's Jesus in the boat with the fishermen. Like Jesus has these stories. So when I talk about project-based adulting, like Jesus had one soul journey. But when you talk about each story, that was almost like him putting his missions, putting his miracles in different projects. And so you yourself have one soul journey, and each miracle, each mission that you are responsible for can be broken up into like a little project that tells a greater story. This is the aspect of your journey that is supposed to be corrupted or hacked because of the handlers, because of the people that come in and contract themselves to you. And so this is almost like you reject a contract. In the process of you rejecting this contract, like the 10 of Cups, the family, the people that understood what was happening, they still maintain, like they couldn't lose the vision of what, like this was, it was already successful in their mind before it was successful in the world, right? Like they had already seen this plan thrive successfully. And so they couldn't imagine that the outcome is what the outcome is right now. The fact that you did not contract to this person, right? The fact that you could see it, you could read it, you could sense it. And so instead of binding to a contract, because guess what? If you would have bound yourself to this contract, this person would have to been able to collect and receive off of your wheel of fortune, right? Your harvest. Whatever you are due as a divine being, at some point it includes many types of fortune. And so if you are in a contract with somebody who is a part of the society and you were in a business deal with them that you never knew, but the person that is handling you in a relationship, dating, connected, related to you, they know, right? Which is why it is so important for them to maintain the environment, to keep you are a climate controlled beast. As long as your temperature stays at a certain rate, it appears as if you are under the control of someone else, right? And so that is why these people all come in order to make sure your temperature stays in a certain way. That's why you're treated a certain way. That's why you're spoken to a certain way. That's why neglect is important. Abandonment is important, right? Being lied to, being deceived, like all of those emotional things that corrupt your water, right? Those are the things that impede your rebirth. If you can't go through a rebirth, well, then you can't get on your soul's journey, because you have to keep trying to settle your waters. And everybody else is like stirring your waters and splashing. So this is saying you went into hermit mode, okay? You were like, I don't want it, I'm just going to go within. Or I don't want it, I'll go without. I don't want it, I'll be by myself. Like you read them and then you moved accordingly. Now, when you're in hermit mode, you don't just sit and wallow and complain. And I'm not talking about what you say to other people. I'm talking about the most powerful voice is the one that you have that nobody can hear. Those are your thoughts. That's the things that you're thinking, the things that you're feeling. That's that inner voice. You took that inner voice and you were like, okay, so what are we afraid of? And what are we worried about? And why do we think we're limited? And why do we think, right? All of the childhood traumas that kind of like corrupted your mind in order to thinking that you were just this thing that wasn't capable, this thing that wasn't able, right? You dealt with that version of self. You dealt with those thoughts, those behaviors when you were in hermit mode. And so now when you come out, it almost looks like instead of having a Nicodemus, now you get a Silas, right? And it's like you went through this rebirth, just like Saul of Tarsus turned into Paul. And guess what? On the other end of that, he gets somebody faithful, a companion to help him on this mission. And because you went through the rebirth internally that they couldn't corrupt emotionally, now you were awarded a Silas. So this reading had layers. It took me so long to try to get through this. So I'm hoping I'm making sense. But what I'm saying here is that you are at the point where you are going to be in control of your environment. Now your entire environment may change, okay? And it may change as a result of a connection. This can be intimate, this can be friend. But what I'm saying is you went through the rebirth, but it was an internal rebirth. I almost feel like people thought that emotionally, like you had to be emotionally with somebody in order for this to happen. Or maybe they knew that it could happen alone, but they also, this is like, even if you're isolated, they at least want you contracted or tied to somebody that can still come in and disturb your waters. You understand what I'm saying? Like they wanted somebody to have a way in, right? Even if you weren't necessarily taking gulps out of somebody's emotional cup, like every now and then you just take a sip or you take a shot, like even if it's just a phone call, a text message, but like they needed somebody that had some type of emotional pull. But you were like, cut it. I'm in hermit mode. I'm in isolation. I'm going to deal with the childhood trauma. And so that's what it did. It talked about you going through your limitations and you recognizing all the ways that you were not using your own freedom to act. Okay. And so now when you get to the Wheel of Fortune, instead of having a Nicodemus, at some point you are going to have a faithful companion, whatever that looks like in your life. But like nobody does a soul's journey. Nobody does a soul's mission without people. Like Jesus had the 12 disciples. They weren't perfect at all, right? But like there was a level of trust that each of them had in order to fulfill their role and their duty. And so I feel like the reason why it was so important for you to have a handler is because it made sure that the right handler never appeared, but it also made sure that you were never really fit in order to draw or attract or manifest the right handler. So like there are many sides to this thing, but it's really about controlling the temperature of the royals. And this is not easy to do. These cults, societies, covens, or groups, this is work. This is like a full-time job for them. This is not just a weekend thing. I believe that this consumes their mind. This consumes their body, their soul. This consumes every aspect of them. And the fact that it's secret, many of them can't talk to a lot of people about it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm getting for this reading. And I hope it, okay. So the family that was behind the scenes waiting for this contract to unfold because they wanted a change of power to happen. Meaning, instead of you going through a rebirth, we will just be able to have that power, right? If you go through a rebirth and you're on your soul's journey, well, then all of that power is cut off from them. Okay? Because guess what? That is what triggers their soul's journey to really begin, right? When they are finally disconnected and broken off from you being an energy source. So you go into hermit mode, you become untouchable, but it's almost like you played dead or you played possum. And the reality is that you untied all of these knots, these psychological knots, or these emotional knots, or these knots that bound your power and didn't allow you to feel strong enough or capable enough or worthy enough, right? Like you just went to work on self. And when you come out, you're reborn. But the first thing that could be reborn was your vessel. Same life, totally different vessel. In terms of vibration, in terms of frequency, but also in terms of like wisdom, right? You don't go through everything you go through just to be a victim. No, that was some powerful stuff because it provided you with some powerful stuff, right? And it's really powerful stuff for the next step. So yes, you are in like your Wheel of Fortune season. You're in the season where anything that limited your vessel, your home base, your body, and this could show up in your physical world as like moving to a home or finding a place that is more like a safe environment. But it almost talks about you having a connection with somebody who is a safe environment. Just like Saul went to Paul, you went from the person that you were when you were under the control of others, and then you go to this person who is reborn and who's moving in their own sovereignty. Right? And so now you are a force that can't be controlled. And it's not that you're out of control, but like you learned how to control you in the way that maybe others used to be able to control you, whether it was emotionally, psychologically, you know, all of the secrets that they knew about you. You learned them on your own in hermit mode. And so now when you come out being able to walk into your own fortune. And that is what they wanted to walk in. That is what they wanted to collect off of, right? They wanted to take some of that off the top for their own riches, for their own gain. All right, I'm going to clarify, y'all. So, Nicodemus could not get your divine guidance, right? But it is definitely something Nicodemus desired. And so I felt like it's a situation like literally if we can't beat them, if we can't possess them, if we can't control and dominate them, then we should join them. And sometimes the coven joins you by way of sending somebody who is one of them, even if the one of them doesn't know they're one of them. They are one of them by frequency, by vibration, by vibration, by demonic or entity control. You know, one entity can control thousands. And so if a coven has a contract with a specific entity, and these entity has contracts to all of these vessels, well, literally at the move of a finger, I don't know if entities have fingers, at the move of a digit, the entity can like push people towards you, almost like pawns on a board. Alrighty. So the card I'm going to clarify is an empty pot makes the loudest noise. Y'all, I told you. And so when this empty pot came in, somebody who comes to you in the energy of a Knight of Cups, somebody who's a romancer, somebody who comes in like they are romantically pursuing you. And it doesn't have to be love. It could be, let's do a project together. Let's work together. Let's, it could be anything, right? Anything. Somebody comes in to fill your cup as if y'all are drinking the same drink. But this is also coming out with the energy of a libation. And so somebody comes to you, but when they come to you, the spell has already been done so that you make this choice, so that you choose them. They don't just come with a wish and a prayer or what, they don't know. They come after already having done the ritual so that you are more likely to choose, right? And so there's a ritual on them, but then there's the ritual they do on you so that you choose them to fill your cup. If they fill your cup and if you are contracted to them, well, then now you are contracted to the coven. Now there's a change of power. Now the coven essentially acts as the hand of the king, the hand of the royal. They control everything outside of you. Sometimes you, right? If you don't know. Anyway, this is coming out on top of an empty pot. makes the loudest noise. It says it's about to backfire. Plans failed, backlash, counteraction, and karma. And so they want you to choose them, right? Because if you choose them as a choice, well, then this is a new opportunity for them. This is a new life. This is a new beginning. Doors open to them that weren't open before. And the only reason why they're open now is because they were contracted to you. All right, the next card I'm going to clarify is childhood trauma disrupts normal brain development. So we have two bodies, one soul, pure love. When anybody bound themselves to you, two bodies, one soul, this was supposed to cause you some type of anxiety. Imagine Jesus with anxiety, right? Like literally, this would essentially be your Christ mind, your Christ consciousness, your I am mind being sickened with some type of mental disorder. And if you can't receive the divine guidance that you were supposed to receive because you are two bodies, one soul in a relationship with somebody that is playing on the same childhood trauma that disrupted your normal development, like you will never wake up to the mission. You get what I'm saying? Like this is the plan, not that it's successful. I know for me it was successful for quite a while, okay? But it was successful until it wasn't. But like this is what they do and this is why they do it. The next card I'm going to clarify is Silas. It says he was Paul's faithful companion during the second missionary journey. So I'm reading this as like you are about to have a faithful companion and you were on your second mission. Your first mission was to endure what you endured. And now your second mission is essentially your north node. So your first mission is south node. Your second mission is north node. And in the north node, you have faithful companions. So on top of that card, it says the white bull, masculine energy, power, dominance, fire, leadership, authority, rules, strong command. And so a part of your wheel of fortune is going to bring you somebody that possesses that energy. Or this is the energy that you found within you when you went into hermit mode because you chose not to bind yourself to this contract with the empty vessel that made the loudest noise. Okay, I'm going to pull Kipper to clarify. So the card I'm going to clarify now is opportunity. Right? And so you were an opportunity and somebody needed you to choose them. They knew who you were and they needed you to not know who they were so that you could choose them. Just by you choosing them would have afforded them a change in their own life. But when they come to you, they come already having done spell work. We have moving on. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it is going to backfire because you moved on. Somebody is standing there waiting for you to like take the rose or I don't know how those, or and you pop the balloon. You're like, nope, next. I'd rather be alone. You know what I'm saying? This is like, this is literally like pop the balloon in the spiritual streets because a lot of this is happening without our knowledge. Like we could watch it on YouTube all day. But like for some of us, these are like that's wild. All right. So the next card I'm going to clarify is change and power. And so this is essentially like what the contracts are about you. You have a power, but they like to create a change in your power. They have the knowledge, the esoteric knowledge. They have the secrets of God about how to change your power from your control into their control. And so one of the ways they do it is by creating these contracts. These are supposed to be emotional contracts, right? And if the rebirth is really about the spirit in the water, they corrupt the water. They can't control the spirit. They can corrupt the water so that you are not fit in order to have this rebirth, so that you could be ready for your second missionary journey. All right. Self-love. So you know what? Self-love comes out with two bodies and one soul, but it also comes out with like the same group of people that were operating behind the scenes or in the energy of the Nine of Swords. Their goal was to hit your fortune, but now they have anxiety because when you went into hermit mode, you addressed the childhood traumas that interrupted normal brain development, right? That would allow you again and again to bind yourself to these contracts, right? But they were playing on the trauma. They were playing on the programming that you knew very well. And so if somebody comes to you in this type of energy, they're coming to you with a program that you can read with your eyes closed. You can feel it with your eyes closed. It doesn't mean it's right for you, but unfortunately you read it very well. So it's comfortable, it's familiar, right? All the while, behind the scenes in the coven, these people are like, loving the fact that you successfully chose the empty pot that made the loudest noise. So on top of limitations, we have self-love. And so all the love that you didn't get, instead of getting love, you got trauma. Instead of getting compassion, you got rejection. Instead of getting respect, you got abandonment. You addressed all of those things in hermit mode, which meant that when the next one comes to get you to drink out of their poisonous cup, you're not going to consume it, because you're like, I don't drink that shit though. I don't drink that. I did, but I don't drink it no more. All right, the last card I'm going to clarify is home based. And so, I had two. And so home based is kind of the energy of like thief. Okay. So I talked about this is what they wanted to do, but obviously this was unsuccessful because you got to self-love, which means you took over your vessel before anybody else could take over your vessel, right? You just went into business. You were like, I'll do business by myself. I'm not signing on contract. I don't need no business partner. We don't got to go into business. You know what? I think I know how to cut costs. I think I know how to bring down my overhead. I don't really need a partner. I don't need anybody to invest in me. I'm good. But the point was for somebody to steal your safe harbor, your vessel. If you are not safe to move in your soul's purpose in your vessel, then whatever makes you unsafe is benefiting from the fact that you are not moving in your soul's journey, right? And so the thing that they wanted to, now listen, I always say this because I always get the thief in the home. A part of your fortune could have been a home, right? But your first home that is always going to be corrupted before they can steal a physical home is going to be your body, because it is your body that holds your soul. And so if your body is at war, if your body is distorted, if your body is not functioning properly, then it allows them to move in the shadows while you're over here in pain, while you're putting out fires, while you're battling for your life in this relationship, right? While you're feeling nauseous every time you pull up to this job. There are other things that they create in your environment so that they can go behind the scenes and cause corruption and literally steal and rob, right? If you don't feel safe, that means you are struggling in your root chakra. You are trying everything possible to feel grounded, stable, and secure. You're learning it's like you can't trust life. And if you can't trust life, and if you don't grow roots, then somebody else is growing all of the things or benefiting off of the crops and the harvest that your energy really should be blossoming. All right, y'all. So that was this reading. I don't know what I'm going to call it. It seemed like it was all over the place. I'm hoping that the message came through, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.